Well, welcome everybody to today's session in the 21-day New You program. Whitney Madden is back with us. I imagine most of you seen Whitney recently on probably the call she did last week. I know a lot of you here were live with her. Some of you may have seen it after the fact. But anyway, Whitney has been an acupuncturist for over 20 years and a certified brain health coach for several years now, and her current company is called Brainwise Acupuncturist, and that she provides education to acupuncturists but other healthcare professionals as well on how to bring modern neuroscience strategies into whatever that setting is that they're already working in. So without any further ado, I will turn it over to Whitney. Well, I'll say that today's presentation is building better brain reserve for better immunity.
Yes.
Or close to that.
Around that.
Around that, approximately.
So, hello everybody. I hope you're having a good Wednesday. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about building brain reserve, and I'm going to show you some brain scans and what to help you understand the changes and the tweaks that we make on a daily basis of how quickly that affects your brain. So that's what we're going to take a look at what our thoughts are and how to work with our thoughts, because that can either help build brain reserve or that can cause more stress and actually decrease our brain reserve. So when we talk about brain reserve, what we're meaning by that is we're wanting to build up our savings account in our brain, because when things happen in our lives, such as a virus comes through and shuts the entire world down, that is stressful, we want to have a savings account in our brain that can handle stressful situations. And so when there is high stress, that requires a lot more energy from the brain. And so the more savings that you can build on a daily basis, the easier things will be and flow, because life happens and we just want to be as in preventative mode and as prepared as possible. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing that I want to talk about is to think about what is it on a daily basis that your brain is involved in. And so you think about, when it comes down to it, everything that you do, every thought that you have, every feeling that you have, every interaction, every action that you take, all of it is either processed through the brain or it is controlled by the brain. So it is the organ of our judgment, of our personality, of our intelligence, of our ability to make decisions. And depending on how we treat our brain is actually dependent on how we age. Not only how our brain ages, but how our body ages. So that's why I talk about we want to build that savings account as much as possible every minute of every day that we can, that we're able to. So, the brain is involved in our dreams, in our feelings, in our energy, in our reactions, in our relationships, in our successes, in our failures. I mean, there's not much that we do during the day except for sleep, but even that, our brain is involved, because our brain is going through the wash cycle at night and changing our short-term memory and moving it to long-term memory. So the brain is with us and working really hard all the time for us. It's just astounding to me. The capacity, our brain is 2 to 3 pounds in weight, and it's about, depending on our size, anywhere from 2% of our entire body weight. And it is the single most complex organ that we know of in the universe as a human being. in the entire universe. And so it has 100 billion neurons. Neurons are specialized brain cells. It has 100 billion neurons in the brain, and it has trillions of supporting cells supporting those cells. It has more connections. There's more connections going on in our brain than there are stars in the universe. So if you just think about that for a minute and you close your eyes and you visualize a starry, starry night, and there are more connections happening than the stars that you can see and not see. So to give you an idea of the capacity of the brain, it can store 6 million years of the Wall Street Journal. So I've said this to an earlier group before, and they don't know what the Wall Street Journal is. But I know we all know that the Wall Street Journal is, right? It's actually a paper, right? that we read many, 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 many pages of. So it has the storage capacity every day for 365 days a year for 6 million years to actually hold, store, and be able to retrieve all of that information. It's pretty amazing. They're in the size of one grain of sand, that size, tiny, tiny little grain of sand, in that size of brain tissue, there are 100,000 brain cells. So it's like super compact. It's the most compact computer that's in the world. And information travels, when it's working really well, up to 258 miles per hour. So I give you those facts and figures to just, one is to be in awe of this amazing organ that we have that's sitting in our heads. And two, to really help you to remember and realize that what we do on a daily basis affects this tiny little organ that affects every aspect of our life. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, I think. How did we just do that? There we go, okay. There we go. Okay, can you all see that okay? If I make it bigger, it's gonna be more, let me see if I do this. Is that okay? Thumbs up, okay. So I'm sorry, you're gonna see the top and bottom of this, what screens we're looking at. So I wanna just give you a visual of what a healthy brain looks like. This top slide right here where my mouse is, that is a SPECT scan. And so that is, it's a nuclear medicine, and it puts a small amount of radiation through the brain. It's about the same amount of radiation as a CT scan. And it shows blood flow in the brain. So the scan on the left here is what has been determined as is a healthy brain. And what we're looking for when we're looking at it, the colors don't mean anything. That's actually just for our visual ability to look at the scans. But what we're looking for is that the left and the right side are similar, that there's symmetry there, they're even, that they're as smooth as possible. So you don't want a lot of bumps and holes in it. On the right-hand side here, this brain is what's considered as an unhealthy brain. And I want to say right away that this is not holes in somebody's brain. What this is, where you see what looks like holes, is actually blood flow that is not flowing. It's lack of blood flow circulation. And so this person on the right does not have full access to all parts of their brain. And so when they go to make a decision or a choice, it is not going to be as healthy for them as the person on the left-hand side. Does that make sense? There's not enough blood flow in all the areas, so we don't have access to all those parts. So the really cool thing about the brain, which I think is just incredible, and they've just figured this out in the last 5 to 10 years in neuroscience, is that you can actually de-accelerate. You can not only stop the brain from aging, but you can actually make it go backwards in time by the way that you treat your brain on a daily basis. So this is a gentleman, his name is Andy McGill. He was a professor. He's retired now. He was a professor at the college at a university, and he was overweight, had high blood pressure, had metabolic syndrome, high cholesterol, a lot of different health issues, wasn't sleeping well, had sleep apnea, a lot of things going on. In 1999, they took this brain scan, and as you can see, there's a lot of holes in this brain scan. So let me just say, I'm sorry I didn't say that. In the top slide, that picture is if you were to take a picture from under your chin looking upward. And this scan is from the top down, just to give you orientation. Sorry about that. So in 1999, he had this scan. You can see a lot of holes. You can actually see on this right-hand side, there's some extra protrusions here in the brain. He had a lot of anger. He was, you can see that in his brain scan actually. So in 2010, so from 1999 to 2010, he made lifestyle changes. You can see he lost weight. He got off all of his medication, and he was exercising, eating right, sleeping, doing all of the good things that we all know to do. And his brain looks so much better, and he feels so much better. So his body was aging 10 years, and his brain was getting younger instead of aging with his body, which is pretty profound, which is pretty awesome. So we all have the capability of doing that. So one thing that I want to talk about, I know we've touched on it before, is that meditation and experiencing feeling gratitude is really important for your brain. It's not just like a nicety, like it's a good thing to, I mean, it is a good thing to do, but it actually changes the blood flow in your brain. So again, this picture is looking from underneath your chin, looking up at your brain from that perspective. A healthy, grateful brain. When this is a 36-year-old female that went in for a scan, and on this side, on the left-hand side, she was focusing on feeling gratitude. And I think I made a little bit of a point of it last time about like the difference between like feeling gratitude with your emotions and your senses versus just writing down, I'm happy, grateful for my health, I'm grateful for my dog, you know, that kind of thing. And then she came out of the scan and she went back in and she thought of something that scared her really badly, a bad experience that she had. And so she was thinking about something that was very fearful for her. And the scan shows here, you can see the difference. There's a hole here that's not here. There's holes here, there's no holes here over on the left-hand side. And you can see that there's a lot less blood flow happening. And so when we're in a fearful state, we know that we don't make good decisions. When we're in fear, our whole job is to survive that moment. But we're not making like healthy choices about dinner when we're in survival mode, right? So feeling grateful actually increases the blood flow in your brain so that when you're done feeling grateful, you then have more access to all parts of your brain to make good decisions throughout the rest of the day. So we're going to look at hydration. We talked a little bit about that last time. On the left-hand side is dehydration, and these are different versions of looking at the brain. So this first one is looking from underneath the chin, and then the side, and then the top. This one here is from the top. And you can see the difference between this here on the left-hand side and this on the right. That this is a lot more bumpy and there's a lot more holes. Remember, they're not holes, they're just meaning that there's blood flow is not circulating there. You can see on the top of this one on the left-hand side, there's a lot of scallops and bumps. And on the right-hand side, this is a lot smoother. And you can see that all the way through. This bottom one on the right, on the left, you can see a lot of the holes here. And as they get more hydrated, there's more blood flow. There's still some holes here, but the blood circulation is better. So hydration matters. If we're even just 10% hydrated, our brain is not going to work very well. Fluid-wise, the amount, our brain is 30%, the mass of it is made up of fat, and of the liquid part, 80% of it is liquid. So if we're just a little dehydrated, we are not making good decisions, which means we're not really having good interactions as well. Relationships may be difficult. So we talked a little bit last time about meditation, and you can see this is after a 12-minute Kirtan Kriya meditation, which if anybody's heard of Satanama, it's a 12-minute meditation. And if y'all are interested, I can put it in the chat after. But to do this meditation for 12 minutes for 6 weeks is what makes the most profound lasting effect. But if you do it just once, you can see the difference on the left-hand side of the before meditation, and then the photo on the right. Look at this circle in the middle. It doesn't happen with any unhealthy brains like this that they have seen. This is an anomaly to meditating, that this actually happens. It's like we have this entire different capacity in our consciousness that we have access to, that we don't have access to otherwise. Just pretty amazing. Along with, there's less bumps and scallops and that kind of thing. So this is just another picture of the before and after meditation. It's a different scan. It's still a SPECT scan, but it's a different viewpoint, and it's from underneath. And I just want to point this out. So one of the things that they're finding is that the cerebellum, which is located in the back of the brain, they're finding that it is more and more important than that scientists ever thought was. And in the beginning, they thought that it just held our balance, like it kept us physically in balance. And what they're finding now is that every thought that we have, every process that we have, actually zips through that cerebellum area. So when we do things in exercise class that require balance and test our balance, we're actually increasing blood flow in that part of the brain, which is awesome, which is really, really good. So when we're looking at this scan, we want the bottom of this scan, which is the cerebellum, we want all of this to be white in terms of activity, because we want it to be the strongest as possible. And ideally, we want the rest of the brain to be either blue or red, and to be quiet. And this brain, after meditation, the cerebellum is on. Now that CPU unit, that central processing unit, is on, and we now have access to it after meditation. and the rest of the brain gets quiet, which is what we want. So that's just after that slide right there is after 12 minutes of meditation. They took the scan, she meditated for 12 minutes, they came out. This was a 42-year-old female that they did this with. So we have anywhere from 50 to 70,000 thoughts per day. I don't know how they figured that out, but I believe it because my brain works pretty fast and there's a lot of thoughts that are happening. Even when I'm meditating, there's a lot of thoughts coming through. The estimation is that 70% of them are negative. And that is because we as human beings are evolutionary programmed to look for danger because we must survive as a species. And so we have to constantly survey the landscape and determine if we are safe. And so we're always looking for the negative. It's not only that the news is providing more negative, but we are asking for it because our brains are asking for it because we want to make sure that we're safe. So the thing to remember here is if there's 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day and 70% of them are negative, is do not believe every thought that comes through your head. And that's what we're going to talk about, is not to believe every thought that comes in through your head. I wish they would start working with, I mean, it's part of what I'm doing education-wise, but I wish they would start working with this with kids, because if you can help a child understand that every thought that comes in and they get devastated by it, that it may not be true, that would really decrease, I think, human suffering. So you've got all these thoughts running around in your head. Now what do you do with them? So the first thing is we want to question them. We want to be curious. And if there's anything that feels conflicted, we want to write them down and really test to see if they're true or not. So we don't want to have a thought and then take the stick over our head and go, bad thought, bad person, bad Whitney that I am. I shouldn't have thought about that. You don't want to do that. That's not helping. So you just want to be curious. You want to step back enough to be able to observe your thoughts. That's when you're able to step back, you're able to then have just a couple seconds to determine, is this really true? So one of the things, there's two things I want to talk about in terms of working with your thoughts. The first thing is the labeling your ants. So Dr. Amen, and he has YouTube videos on this if you want to take a look. I mean, I could, spend 45 minutes just on this, but I'm going to just give you a brief overview. So the ants are what he calls is the automatic negative thoughts that come in. That's what ANT stands for, automatic negative thoughts. And so what we want to do is we want to label the type of thought that we're having. So if we're having an all or nothing type of thought, that would look like, every time that I ask my daughter to unload the dishwasher, she never does it. That's not true all of the time. It's probably true a lot of the time. But if I feel in my system that it is true all of the time, then I get angry or frustrated, and then there's chemical reactions that start happening in my body that actually deter from my own health. So you want to be able to step back from your thought just enough to go, it's not true all the time. It's true this time, but it's not true all the time. So you want to be, if you can label your thought, if you can say, what kind of thought is that? It actually gives you a breath to take and the power to determine, do you want to go down that rabbit hole? So the always, never, everyone, like, a child will come home and say, everyone at school was mad at me today. Okay, let's take a look at that, and you start naming kids and you start asking, because you're testing to see if that is actually true. The kids can't do it by themselves. So we start saying, did Mary say that? And did Joe say that? And well, no, well, yeah, they did. Well, no. And okay, so that's not really true. So who are the kids that were nice to me today? And let's focus on what that felt like and work our focus that way. So we do that for our children automatically. We don't even think about it. We start working our children through that process, but we don't necessarily work ourselves through that process. So another one is like fortune telling. We're going to be stuck in this coronavirus pandemic for the next 6 years of our lives. That would be fortune telling. And we don't really know what that's going to look like. But if I believe that thought that came in, that it's going to last another 6 years, I just want to crawl into a hole and go back to bed. I don't even want to get up in the morning. And my blood pressure either rises or drops. I mean, there's chemical reactions that happen. So we really want to check, is that true? Mind reading, we do that a lot. We can mind read our spouses. Our children can mind read their teachers. My teacher's going to fail me. She hates me. She's totally going to fail me. Well, let's look at the evidence of what we think that would look like, or why you think that's the case. And maybe we should talk to the teacher about that. Or mind reading with our spouses. I know when, my husband comes home from work, he's going to be in a bad mood. Well, I don't really know that. I have no idea what's going to happen when he walks through the door. And so if I can say, hey, I'm mind reading, I don't have all the information for that, then it helps me to take control of that thought. So labeling ourselves, calling ourselves, criticizing or judging ourselves stupid, or just being judgmental or harsh on ourselves. Thinking with our feelings, and that can be a dangerous hole to go down if we are actually thinking that we are angry, but we're not feeling angry, but we think we should be angry. So we want to start to pull that apart and really see if that's true. Guilt beatings. Oh, we're good at that as a society. We're really good. That, if we're beating ourselves up for having that chocolate piece of cake, or for not exercising today, that's not really helpful. What would be helpful is, ooh, I missed my workout today. Tomorrow I'm going to do it first thing so that I don't forget it and it doesn't get away from me. And you can feel the difference of what that feels like in your body, beating yourself up, or, beating yourself up. Blaming is another one, whether you're blaming yourself or blaming others. We have mirror neurons in our brain. And so like when we smile at a baby smiles back. And the reason that they're doing that is they're not only seeing our face, but their brain cells are responding to our brain cells. And so that happens in relationship as well. And so when we start to blame somebody else, they're going to start blaming us for something, and it's going to get into a conflict. So we really want to stay focused and aligned with what is true. So labeling the ants is the first thing, and becoming aware of what your thoughts are. And again, Dr. Amen, if you Google Dr. Amen, A-M-E-N, on YouTube and type in ants, killing the ants, you'll find some videos on that that go even further into that process. But another process that I think is really helpful as well, that can be in combination with the labeling your ants, is Byron Katie's work and it's called The Work. And there's 4 basic questions. When you have a thought, you want to check it for accuracy. So you want to ask, is it true? Is it really true? How do I feel if I think that thought is true? What happens in my body? And the 4th question would be, who would I be without that thought? So when we're done here in just a few minutes, if somebody has a thought that they have been struggling with and is willing to converse with me on it, I will walk you through the Byron Katie's process to help you to turn that thought around, to give you a good example. And then at the end of those 4 questions, what you can do is you can turn the thought around. And you can find 3, you want to look for 3 specific genuine examples that this turnaround is possible and true in your life. So we'll take a look at that so you guys can see an example of that. So again, the quality of your health is determined by the decisions that you make today and your ability not only to live in this moment, but to live for all moments. So it's not just about the chocolate cake and how good that feels in this moment, but how good is that going to feel for your body in a half an hour when you start getting a sugar crash? So that's the kind of decisions that we want to take a look at. So I know I covered a lot, and let me see if I can unshare that. Let's see. Stop share. Okay.
Thank you, Whitney.
Yeah.
That was great. I love all the images and examples of the brain scans, the befores and afters, and just amazed that, I mean, amazed in some ways, amazed that we have the technology to so quickly capture it, in a matter of minutes, before a 12-minute meditation and afterwards. Before, in a place of gratitude, a state of gratitude, a state of fear.
Right.
Those changes in blood flow to the brain. It's fascinating and remarkable, but really encouraging too.
It is. And that's, the fact that we can change it and actually de-accelerate it, no matter what age we are. If we're 100, we can actually de-accelerate our brain and make a profound difference. So
I really appreciate that you had the example or brought up hydration as one of the examples. I think that the thought part, which you're going to sounds like go into a little bit more, which is great here in a moment, is wonderful. A lot more complicated, challenging to kind of work through that than just like, let me drink some more water today and tomorrow. Because I'll say that some drastic percentage of people, 80+% of folks that come into my office when I ask them about hydration, they're not drinking nearly enough.
Yep.
Particularly just good hydration sources like clean water.
Right. And, not soda or coffee or Yeah.
So I think hydration for the vast majority of people is one of the probably simplest and most effective things they could do to improve their overall health. You touched on it with brain health, but we could go on quite a few tracks with how valuable hydration is for better mobility, better flexibility, less pain, less inflammation.
Absolutely. I mean, our bodies are 80% water, so it's so necessary. And we talked last time, like the calculation is to take your body weight in pounds and divide by 2, and that's the number of ounces that you want to drink per day. Right. And you want to drink that, by 6-7 o'clock at night. You want to get all that in. The ideal in Chinese medicine is to do it room temperature wise. because cold actually takes more energy to digest, and you want to just have the water go in and do what it needs to do and not have to take extra energy to bring it into the system.
And in terms of what, think about what cold water does. If you pour cold water on grease, right, or fat, how it congeals, right? So when you've taken in your fat, particularly, and it's trying to go through your digestive system, you put your ice water, your ice whatever on top of that, and it's congealing somewhat. It's going to be slowing down. It's going to move through the digestive system more slowly and require a lot more energy to warm it back up to keep it moving.
Right.
So that's another, I think, reason that room temp or warm liquids are generally a better idea than something that's ice cold.
Cold causes shrinkage.
Yes.
Thanks, Kathy.
From the Seinfeld show. I had to get up and go get water because I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, it's 4:45, almost 4:45, and I'm about 2 glasses behind, but I've been drinking all day. Quick question on, is it okay? I mean, I have heard both sides of this, to drink, I'm talking about tea with no caffeine, like herbal tea, in place of the water.
You can do some of that, but you want the majority to be water.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, you can put a little bit of lime or lemon in it if you want to do that. The one thing that you just want to be careful of, if you don't want to drink lime or lemon water all day, because the acid will actually affect the enamel on your teeth. So if you do that, first thing in the morning as hot water and lemon, and that'll help cleanse your bowels and get your liver going and help detoxify your liver, that's a beautiful thing. But as far as for taste wise, you can put, a little bit in, maybe 1 glass, taste wise, but for every cup of coffee, for every drink of alcohol, whether it's a shot, a glass of wine, or a beer, or a 4-ounce liquor, and for every soda, you need 2 glasses of water to replace for that just one, on top of your normal amount of water that you need.
Whoa.
So coffee, soda, and alcohol are all dehydrating you. Mm-hmm. So if you're gonna do it with 2 glasses of water right next to you, and your glass of coffee or whatever.
And obviously, as you increase your activity levels, physical activity,
yes,
you want to increase your water intake. And then as we're coming up on more and more warmer days, so the more time you spend outside when it's warm, also. So that's that your metric there for your body weight divided by 2 and ounces is a good baseline, but you've got these other considerations where you probably, many of us actually need to go beyond that to.
Right. Are you sweating? Yeah. Right. Are you losing fluids during the day? Absolutely.
Right. So.
Can I ask you, what do you think about pH balanced water? You see any benefit in that? The more alkaline?
I think I think 1 or 2 glasses of that is okay, but your body is trying to regulate itself, and so when you add something like that in, it can actually confuse things. So if you know for a fact, if you're testing and you know where you are pH level wise, then you can, and you are acting accordingly, then yes. But if you don't know where your pH level is, I wouldn't just say, oh, I'm going to do all, alkaline water for the whole day.
Got it. Oh, somebody I know drinks nothing but, and I just bought some because it tasted good, but I don't drink it strictly. I do drink it, and I stopped drinking Pellegrino as much and more of the alkaline water, but I don't really have any basis for it other than I tried it and it was so tasty.
So I would just, I would do, maybe 20% you know, but your body is, every cell is trying to figure out the balance of the pH. And so I wouldn't do it without, you know, knowing what my pH is.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Whitney, on the graphics that you had of the brain,
Yeah.
I noticed that there was no depiction of the greater fissure, and yet and it was kind of hollow. There really isn't any blood flow in that area there. So it seemed like it just was a big blob without. So the scan was. How can you explain how that is?
So it's a single photo emission, computed topography.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made up of a lot of cross-sectional units to be able to make that particular picture. So it's not it's not a one-shot deal.
Okay, so it's not totally anatomically correct. I mean, because the fissure.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So, and it's just showing the blood flow. So, yeah.
Whitney,
Yes.
it's Kathy. I have a question about that fear thing with the CAT scans and the meditation. I'm very claustrophobic, and whenever I know I either have to have an MRI or a CAT scan, I go into total panic. And I've tried talking myself through with meditation and music and all kinds of things to get through it. Usually I wind up having to be medicated with Klonopin or something like that. But I'm just curious, that would be an abnormal brain scan for me because I'm fearful just going into it, right? I've never had a brain scan, but I'm just curious because I've had CAT scans and MRIs, and I'm a rep.
Right. So depending on what kind of scan you're getting is going to depend. So, you know, CT scan versus MRI, the CT scan is going to be more functional, and the MRI is going to show more the magnetic resonance of what's happening, the magnetic activity in your brain. So they haven't done, that I know of, that I've seen, scans for that in, you know, to look at the opposite, you know, between fearful and grateful, or meditate before meditation and after meditation when they go into CT scans or MRIs. I'm sure they've done it, but I can't speak to what that looks like.
Yeah, would just be interesting for whoever's reading it to know that that person was extremely fearful of having the procedure done.
Well, yeah, I mean, they did the tests telling her that, I mean, she said, you know, I'll go in grateful and then I'll go in fearful. So it was a very specific, and they did many scans like that. So, yeah.
Whitney, this is Anne.
Hi, Anne.
Hey. How do you meditate for 12 minutes? What do you think about? Or do you think about your life? Do you think about, what do you think about?
So when you meditate, people think that you're not supposed to have any thoughts, but the truth is you're still going to have thoughts. So when I first started meditating, it was helpful for me because of how my brain works to do something where I was following along with a guided meditation. And so that particular meditation that they were talking about, and Dr. Amen did a study of following people to do this 12-minute meditation daily for 6 weeks, that they had the most profound difference in blood pressure and anxiety and stress levels all decreased, their cortisol decreased. They did a lot of, you know, physical markers as well. And this particular meditation is called a kirtan meditation, which is satanama. And what you do is, and I'll put it in here. Satanama. On YouTube, you want to take a look at it, and there's 12-minute meditations of that. There's 30-minute, there's 60-minute meditations, and there's different ones with different music in the background. So you might have to try a few to see what you like. But when you do it, you're going to chant Sa and satanama, it means knowledge. The translation is knowledge, wisdom, compassion, peace. I can't remember the fifth one, but it's all like happy, good words, just so you know what you're saying. But what you do is you say sa, ta, na, ma, and you change your hands. And so you're touching your thumb to each of your fingers. So it's sa, ta, na, ma. And you say it with the music. And what's interesting about this particular meditation is that when you listen to the music, you're going to say it for 4 minutes in a normal voice. And then you're going to hear the music decrease in volume. And then you're going to whisper it. You're going to go sa, ta, na, ma. And you're going to keep doing that for a couple minutes. And then you're going to hear the music decrease again. And then you're going to say it to yourself. And then it's going to increase and you whisper it. And then it's going to increase again. And you say, and you sa, ta, you say it normally. And so the music leads you through it. You don't have to, you can just follow it. You'll instinctively know, like, oh, music's getting a little softer. I'll just whisper. Oh, it's getting really quiet. I won't, I'll say it to myself. But they figured with this meditation and the hand gestures and the change in tone, you're using so many more senses when you're meditating to get more blood flow, more areas of your brain involved in the meditation. So that
you look that up on YouTube.
You can. Mm-hmm. So that's one type of meditation, which I think is a great one to start with. And then there's other meditations where you can focus on your breathing, or you can focus on, there's transcendental meditation, which focuses on a mantra that you say internally to yourself. And that's actually the kind that I do now, where I say the mantra to myself. And the way that my meditation teacher taught me was, you're going to say the meditation and you're going to have these thoughts walking alongside the mantra. And you just keep saying the mantra, and eventually the thoughts kind of go a little further out, and then they may come back in, but they'll go back out. But you don't worry about them. You just let them do whatever they need to do. Just let them be balloons on a string flying around in the air, and you don't have to grab them. You don't have to remember anything.
Is your mantra one word?
It is. Mm-hmm.
You make up a word?
With transcendental meditation, you go through a process to figure out what that word is, or what that mantra is for you, depending on your age and a couple other things. So, yeah.
I'll just mention real quick that earlier today in our Facebook group, I posted a link to a free meditation program being offered right now. It's normally not free, through the Institute of Heart Math. And Heart Math specializes in brain and heart-based, so gratitude-based techniques that they're looking at brainwave patterns and heart wave patterns and other patterns of, through the different systems of the body. Sorry for the background noise here. Some kids are down. But anyway, check the Facebook page for that. It's a great resource. I downloaded it myself recently. And Charlie's going to be doing a presentation next week more about heart math and the brain and heart coherence techniques that are a form of meditation.
Could you email that too? I don't do Facebook. And I just don't want to sign up for it.
Yes.
Thank you.
So does anybody want to be a guinea pig with me in terms of they've had a thought that they're really stuck on, and just to work through the 4 questions with the Byron Katie's 4 questions, just so everybody can kind of get an idea what that would look like? Good. Everybody's thoughts are positive and awesome, and everything is great. Excellent.
Yeah.
I'll volunteer.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the noise is receded, so.
So what would be a thought?
Okay, so Give me just a moment here to see if I can pick out one of my 70,000 thoughts. Um, so can you give me a prompt here for a little bit? Can you, I can think of it,
So
sure.
is there worry about when the gym's going to open up, or when the kids are going to go back to school, or?
You know, if you can't think of one, I can give you something.
Go, Frankie.
I mean, I am faced with this horrible dilemma because my caretaker down in New Mexico, where all my horses are, has to retire, and he's given me an absolute deadline. And so far, I'm having a really hard time finding applicants. So if the thought is more just outright fear of what's going to happen if I don't find somebody. And I don't know if that's along the lines, Whitney, that you're talking
Okay.
about.
No, that's good. That's good. So it's the fear of so what is the fear what's going to happen if you don't find a caretaker? What is your fear that would happen?
It would be a disaster. I mean, I need somebody to be on the property and protect, you know, a lot of things, systems and horses, and the fear would be that there's a disaster, you know, that somehow, and I don't think that'll happen, but it's kind of, I've strung things together because his health has deteriorated somewhat, and I've had to string together kinds of ways of getting things done down there that are just appalling to me.
Okay. So this would be a really good one to write with, because this is a big situation, and it's not just a thought that pops through.
No. It's fear of what am I going to do? You know.
So the first thing is it true that it would be a disaster if you couldn't find somebody?
Well, I believe that some of the people who support what goes on down there wouldn't let it be. So it's probably not true.
Okay. And so the second question then, is it really true?
Well, I mean,
is it really true that the disaster could happen?
It is really true that there could be a disaster if a whole lot of things fell apart and I wasn't down there.
Okay. And so how do you feel thinking that it could be a disaster?
Like the child in me wants to just run away and scream.
Okay. And who would you be without that thought? That if you knew that everything was going to be okay, how would you feel?
The strong, assertive person who's had to deal with incredibly difficult situations in her work life and life for decades.
Resilient, resourceful.
Yeah, I guess, you know what? I think I'm scared. Oh my gosh, what if I can't be resilient and resourceful and I just turn into a puddle?
So what you want to do is and it's really important that you handwrite this, not just type it, because especially for women, it's really important to handwrite it.
Okay.
But what you want to do is when we get off the call, is to sit down and to think about all the times in your life that you have been resilient and resourceful, and anything in relation to this property and to this situation would be really helpful for you to write down all of those things. But you want to write down, because when I asked you, is it true? You said, well, it really wouldn't be a disaster because there's other people down there and they wouldn't let it happen. And then I asked, is it really true? And then you said, yes, it would happen. So you really want to, you're changing your observation. So you really want to write these answers down and start to shift how you're thinking about it. Because here's the thing, in order to be resilient and resourceful, you don't want to be in fear. So you
Correct.
want to check your thoughts for accuracy, and then you want to move accordingly.
Okay, can I say something else?
Sure.
So my husband died about 2.5 years ago. Between the two of us, we were a powerhouse in terms of what we could get done, what our accomplishment was. And so my husband, if I had moments of fear that we're talking about, we talked it through. I have to talk it through with myself. And that is harder.
I'm sorry about the loss of your husband.
We were really close and we changed each other's lives enormously. So it was a big loss.
Can you visualize when you're writing, can you visualize him sitting there and having input of what ideas and resources that he had?
I actually do that. As a matter of fact. Yes,
No,
I
it's
do.
it's important. Yeah. Because you need to get out of your head, right? You need to get out of the fear thought, because you already know what to do. You're just panicking. And so you're not going to be able to do what you have to do while you're panicking. You're
Got
not
it.
going to be able to eat if the tiger is running after you.
Got it.
So doing your work and writing those things down and changing those thoughts around can be really, really helpful. And you may even want to have a conversation with him while you're writing and say, well, what else? What else can we do? What are we going to do here?
Okay. I actually do that.
That's good.
Whitney?
My first husband died, and I still have conversations with him, and in areas where he was really helpful in my spiritual life. When I get stuck, I call on him and I ask him for support and guidance, and he answers me every time. And it's not my thought process that's coming in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Impressive. Yeah, I feel like it's hard to explain, but I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
It was very sudden, very unexpected, and therefore it was pretty shocking when I lost him. But that's, it's not that. It's knowing how great it was to have this partnership, and then.
And you
Lord.
still do. It's just in a different form.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's very empowering.
Yeah. Well, good. Somebody else was jumping on.
I was trying to say that it's
Hi.
Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
I got divorced it'll be 7 years ago, and it was after a 42-year marriage, and it wasn't much, it was a decision I had to make because of the situation and my doctor's advice. And it was really very difficult. And I went through a lot of, how am I going to do this? But I've always been very independent and very capable. But I still was like, the first night I was in this house alone, having finally pulled the plug, and after many years of therapy and dealing with it, I felt very alone, but not lonely. And my father's voice came to me, and I get teary thinking of it. But when I was having trouble as a kid making a decision, he'd say, "You're smart. You know what to do. Trust yourself."
Mm-hmm.
And that still comes to me when I'm second guessing myself. I think I hear my dad's voice saying, "Trust yourself." And if you had such a profound relationship with your husband, what I would say is just pull up something that he used to say to you that would get you through. And, and keep that in your head when you start doubting yourself, and this is what I still do to this day. When I get a little nervous about something, I'm like, "You're making the right decision. Trust yourself, trust yourself."
And the thing with decisions is we want to make the most informed decision, right? We want to be able to access all parts of our brain so that we have that 360-degree view of the issue and the resolve of the solution. But here's the thing, with every decision, you get to the next step and then there's a couple more decisions. So you still have, we have so many different accesses and resources and tools in our system and in our brain. And so the biggest thing is we want to be able to take care of our brain so that we can access the best decision in this moment. And in a moment from now, there may be another decision, you know, and that's okay. So, and that's what, you know, like getting good sleep, eating well, meditating, exercising, you know, all of the best therapies on the planet are those that are free. Sleeping, eating, moving, meditating, they're all free. And it's really great. You know, I am not an expert in exercise, so I appreciate the ability to call on Zach and be like, okay, like, how do I move my body differently than I move it every day of my life? And, you know, I go to my meditation teacher to teach me that. But once I got it, I can use it.
Frankie, I put in the chat box, I put the link to that free program that I wrote.
Oh,
So
thank you so
look at
much.
the chat box, it's right there now.
And I will tell you, with that, with the heart math, doing those meditations as well. I mean, any meditation that you can do before you make a decision. Do you remember that picture that I showed you with the little circle in the middle of the brain that they didn't see at any other time in doing brain scans? And they've looked at brain scans of murderers and you know, people who have had traumas and head traumas and, you know, all sorts of things. And they've never seen that except after meditation. When you meditate and you come out of meditation, that's the time to make a decision. If you're in fear mode and you're having all of those fear thoughts, don't make a decision at that time. You don't have enough access to your brain. Go out for a walk, go for an exercise, sleep on it, you know, do whatever you need to do, but don't make a decision when you're in those fear thoughts.
And that basic heart math meditation, the quick coherence technique, they call it, coherence being bringing coherent, the brain waves and the heart waves that are measurable into coherence with each other so they're synchronized. It's a 3 to 5 minute process they teach. Now, obviously, in 3 to 5 minutes over time, you get probably even more and more coherence, but it can be that short and that quick to have a simple little pause before you go and make a decision that, you know, could have consequences that are going to be important to you.
And so when we have access to all parts of our brain, because we have that ability to make better decisions, it increases our immunity. That's our best immunity defense. Yeah, it's good to have vitamin C. Yeah, it's good to have some, you know, D and vitamins and things like that. But our immunity comes from our brain's capacity. That's who's running the immune show. So that's the root of our immune system, you know, that and our gut. And so we want our gut to be working well so that, you know, we're able to mentally digest things well.
So is the bottom line here, Whitney, a positive attitude through all of this?
It is. And here's the thing. I don't support putting a smiley face on an empty gas tank and pretending that it's okay. That's not helpful.
No.
That doesn't do anything. Then you're on the side of the road and you're in trouble. So really finding those things that actually start changing your thoughts is what you want to work on. You know, if a thought comes through and you're like, gosh, this is a crappy day, but it just kind of goes through, you don't have to, you're not giving much credence to it. But if it keeps, like, if you keep finding reasons of why it's such a bad day, you got to start shifting and figuring out how to start changing your thoughts. And do not beat yourself up. That's not helpful. Do not take the hammer to your own head, please.
No.
Your brain is too precious.
You mentioned the best healers are free, and it reminded me of one of my favorite essays by Hermann Hesse, and it's called On Little Joys. And he writes about the fact that so many of life's little joys, JOYS, are free. So I would recommend that, because he talks about, how often do we stop and look at a raindrop on a leaf and the joy that may bring, and it's free.
Right.
So it's an interesting essay. It's a little long, but not that long.
What is it called? I'll put it in the chat.
On Little Joys. I can do it.
Okay.
On Little Joys, and it's by Hermann Hesse.
I love it. And that's great, because that will give you it sounds like it'll give you some ideas, and sometimes it's, you want to think about, again, the five senses. Is there a smell that you love that would just like change your mood? Is there music that you want to listen to? Is there, getting outside to the sun, putting your hands into the dirt, petting your dog, chasing your cat with a, toy or something like that? What are the things that can help shift your thoughts and your brain? But I would really take a look at the ants and the Byron. You can also look up online, and I'll put that in here, Byron Katie's 4 questions. And she has a bunch of YouTubes as well, where somebody will come to her with, really complex, hard problems, and she will walk them through that 4-question simple process, and they'll go off the stage and they'll be like, yep, I'm good. It's all fine. So it's just the thing that we have to think about is that it's just a thought. It's just energy going through. But sometimes we like grab it and we're like, oh my God, this is terrible. This is the worst thing ever. And it's just a thought. Don't believe it.
I have another question. At the very end of your slides or points or whatever they're called, at the very end you said quality of life determines, but I didn't get the rest of it.
So every decision that you make,
yes,
you want to live for this moment and for the moments ahead. So it's not only, like, okay, yeah, I'll have the chocolate cake now because it would make me feel really good right now. But then in a half an hour, I'm going to have a blood crash.
Right.
So maybe a blood sugar crash. So maybe I'll have just a little bit so that I can enjoy it now, but that I don't have the crash later. And so it's living for this moment and all moments.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Whitney. This was great.
Yeah, thank you
Loved
very
it.
much.
Everybody, yeah. Let's give Whitney a round of applause.
Yeah.
Thanks, Whitney.
You're welcome.
Loved it.
So,
Thank you, Whitney. Thank
so-
you, Whitney.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
all right, we'll see you guys again soon, maybe tomorrow or Friday for our next special content calls. Take care.
Sounds
All
good.
right, take care.
Thanks again, Whitney. Thanks,
You're
Zach.
welcome. Be
Bye-bye.
well.
Thank you, Whitney. Thank you. That was great.
Good. You're welcome.
Whitney, if you have like 2 seconds, I would like, could I share a brain story with you?
Sure.
In 2014, I lost the vision in my right eye. And MRI showed that I had a brain tumor, an optic nerve sheath meningioma, literally clamping down on the nerve. Where its location, it was not operable. So they treated it very aggressively with steroids, and the tumor released, always remained, but my vision returned. So every 6 months, I had to get a follow-up MRI to keep track of this tumor.
Mm-hmm.
On the 3rd follow-up, so 18 months later, my phone rings off the hook because they found a second brain tumor, this time Rathke's cleft cyst or pituitary adenoma, sitting on top of the pituitary gland. Everybody lost their mind because I had this current track record, same image care, same radiologist, and now there's a second brain tumor. If the second one got bigger, it goes up and hits the optic nerve. If it got bigger, lower, downward, it impinges on the pituitary gland, the master gland for the hormone. That one, while operable, we made a decision with the neurosurgeon not to operate because they go in through the nose, they break the sinuses, they take 2/3 of it, and the healing is really, really traumatic, more so than the surgery. So we made the decision that we would continue to watch, and as long as my pituitary function was unaltered, there's no need to rush into surgery. So that was April 14, October 15. I have all these MRIs every 6 months. December 2017, so almost 2.5, 3 years ago, I see the neurosurgeon. He puts up all the scans on the screen. He says, if you are a first-time patient, I would wonder why you're here because there's no evidence of any of the tumors. There's no trace. They're not there. And he sits back and he says, tell me what you've been doing. I said, well, I retired from a job that I love, that every job has some degree of stress. I fine-tuned my diet. I exercise a little more. I meditate a little more. I yoga a little more. And I spend more time traveling. And I spend more time with my family and friends. And he literally pushed back and said, well, maybe that's it. Don't come back. We don't need to see you anymore.
Yep.
Wow.
So everything that you were saying today was resonating and illustrating my own personal story to get to where I am today. It was fantastic.
Right. And, you know, I mean, so I also practice some with German New Medicine. And so from a German New Medicine standpoint, when we are in conflict, there's actually an area, depending on how our psyche perceives that conflict, there's actually an area that creates edema. So if you look at a CT scan, it looks like there is a tumor there. And that at that same moment, it also happens in the psyche. And so there's a conflict that you were dealing with. And in making all of those changes, you were able to resolve the conflict. And
I was really down for one day following each diagnosis. And then afterwards I thought, okay, there is something that is in my control. Right. These are the things that I can fine tune, adjust, modify. Let's do it.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
And my vision is back.
Yeah. And, you know, we talk about physical health, we talk about emotional health, we talk about, you know, mental health, we get, you know, education on sex ed and on drugs and all of this, but we don't get any education about the brain. And what we've figured out in the last 5 to 10 years is just changing everything that we've known about. And so, you know, what we do on a daily basis and how we think throughout the day affects everything. It affects our immune system. It affects our, you know, everything. So I am thrilled to know that you are happy, healthy, all the way through in every brain cell.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time, your expertise, your patience, your inspiration was really great. Really liked it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Did you feel good about that?
I think so. Did I make sense along the way?
One sec.